Hey guys, welcome back to Salmon Industries. Today we're doing the timing belt and water pump guide on this Festiva. I'll be showing you everything you need to do to replace it while keeping the engine in the bay. We'll switch between a couple different views so you can see it in the bay to get an idea of what you're doing when you do it, and we'll also record it on an engine outside the bay just to give you guys a much clearer picture of what's going on. But we'll be taking off the engine mount, jacking up the engine, taking everything off the front, putting it all back in. While we're in there, we'll also go ahead and do a cam and crank seal. I'll show you guys how to do that correctly, and I might even introduce a new product for the Festiva store to help out with that seal job. So, to start, we went ahead and got it jacked up just high enough for us to take the wheels off, because with the wheel off on the passenger side, it's going to be way easier for us to access the crank bolt and be able to drop the engine up and down. Then it also gives me a little more room to drain the radiator. We're going to want to drain it now because we go to replace the water pump. If we have the block kind of emptied out, it won't spill everywhere. Otherwise, if you don't drain it, you're going to have coolant everywhere the moment you break any of the water pump seals from taking it off. So we're going to get this one drained. We're going to get that wheel off. I went ahead and took the hood off. You definitely don't have to do that to do this job, but it's going to make it way easier for us to film it and show you guys what's going on from the top. All right, now we have finished draining the radiator. We've got the front passenger tire off for access. And I went ahead and took the hood off. That is just for filming. I'm trying to make it easy for you guys to see in here. You do not need to remove the hood when you do this job at home. Next, we're going to be taking off the engine mount. I've got the jack set up right under the oil pan with a big rubber pad. Make sure you're not going metal on metal so you don't dent your pan when you lift the engine up and down. We're going to come in here, take off the engine mount. We're going to take off all the V-belts. I went ahead and did that now to save time. If you don't know how to do that, I would recommend going back and watching my V-belt guide video. I'll link it up in the corner over here somewhere. I would also recommend, in general, watching the engine removal video. We're not taking the engine out, but it does kind of show you how that mount stuff works up in the zone. It's a little different on this since it's carby versus that video, but I'll go over some of that when we're looking down in the engine bay here in a second. We're also going to be doing this to an engine sitting outside the car. I'll switch between the in-car view and the out-of-car view every so often so that way you guys can get a very clear picture of what all we're doing, because it is going to be kind of hard to see with everything down inside this little crevice. So here we are on the passenger side looking down into the engine bay. You can see our engine mount right here, timing cover, water pump pulley, crank pulley down in there. We have the AC system in front. I've already taken the V-belts off like we talked about earlier. So now we will go ahead and remove the engine mount with our jack supporting the engine up front. So there's a big 14 mil going all the way in here, and then these 17 mil nuts back here. We'll take all of it off at once and just pull that out so it's completely out of the way. I'll have to go find that nut in the engine bay later. If this were an EFI car, you'd have your VAF box here and the intake and stuff, so make sure you get all that removed so you can work in the zone. That's covered in the engine removal video. In this case, this was a carby car, so there would have been a reservoir right here for your washer tank. We went ahead and took that out because it didn't work anyway. Now, with the jack in place, I'm going to start jacking the engine up. Eventually, you'll hit a point where either the AC system hits the bumper or the transmission mounts reach their max point and will lift the whole car up. So I'm just going to keep going until I start to see the car go up a bit. Right about there. Perfect. So I think I'll leave it there. That's about the max we can go on this particular engine. Normally you get a little more out of it than this, but this is about where this one's happy at. Now I can come in here with our 10 mil. I'm going to start by taking off the water pump pulley. There should be 3 bolts in here. This one's actually broken off already. Not a big deal since those are part of the water pump itself. So when we replace that, fix it, no problem. Go ahead and take these 2 off. And these are really short 10 mils, so make sure you save those. Now we can pop him off. Now I can pop off our upper timing cover, and this is pretty typical for these to get really beat up from oil and heat. Here's the seal. You can see how swollen it is. It's already sticking out past the edge. Right here, the water pump pulley is starting to wear through the plastic. Oftentimes they'll wear through until there's a huge hole in here. These I actually sell brand new on the Festiva store to fix that. Once they swell up like this, you really can't fix them. You just got to replace them. To remove this top cover, there's 4 bolts. One here, which also holds on your dipstick tube. Top 2, and one more kind of down here towards the side. You can see everything in here is just covered in oil, so you might have to dig through oil to find these. And as you can see, these are all quite long, so save these. Should be all the 4 same size long ones. This car also has some sort of aftermarket dipstick tube. Normally this would not be moving on its own, but this is not the one for this car, so I guess I'll pull it out so we don't lose it. It doesn't get it out of the way. Something's gone terribly wrong there at one point. Now the cover just pops off. And you can see just how messed up this one is. It's complete, oh, gross. Yeah, completely trash. So this one's probably a good candidate for a replacement with how gross and swollen all the stuff is in here. I'll also go ahead and point out our ground cable here. Sometimes these are too short and it'll limit how far up you can take the engine. That's just a 10 mil over on this bracket over here. Taking this bracket off also lets us move the AC line just that little bit extra out of the way. With that top cover off, you can see your cam gear and your water pump here quite clearly. Lower timing cover is still kind of stuck behind our lower pulleys, so we'll save that for when we put the engine back down to get to the crank bolt. We're going to pause here in the engine bay and switch over to the engine that's outside the car to give you guys a much clearer picture of what else is going on. So now we're over at our stand engine, which you can see is still mostly complete. We'll start off by taking off our water pump pulley, so that way the belt comes off with it. And then same deal, we'll take off the timing cover and our dipstick tube. Now this one you can see is actually in even worse condition than that last one. The hole on that thing is huge. Like you can easily see daylight through that. And the seal has expanded so much that it won't fit back in there at all. So that's definitely due for replacement. But same deal, there's your cam pulley. Here's your water pump. Next we can take out our crank bolt and all of our pulleys. And this is where you start to see some differences between the small nose crank and large nose crank. The small nose crank being on all Festivas up to 92, large nose being early 92, 93 build. The crank pulley bolt is 21 mil for both. No matter what, you're gonna have to pull it out to replace your lower crank seal, which we will be doing in this video. But if you're just doing a timing belt and you have a small nose crank, all you have to do is remove these 4 10s and these 2 little Phillips. Your pulleys will come off and you can access the belt. The pulleys will slip off past the bolt. On the large nose crank, there's a big fat plate on the pulley, then the 2 crank pulleys in front of that. The whole bolt has to come out to remove that big plate to get to the belt. For the sake of this video, we'll just go ahead and pull the whole thing off. That way you guys know how to do it on both of them. Okay, now we're on the ground looking up into our passenger wheel well. We're gonna wanna take off this fender liner, so that way we can see the pulley when we drop the engine down. That is just a couple 10 mils. Here. Now, there would normally be a clip on the back. It's already gone on this car. Then the clip in the front, which is one of those little plastic screw type clips. Now, if you look closely, you can just see the edge of our pulley peeking out here. I'm going to drop the engine down with the jack, and hopefully we'll be able to see the entire 21 mil bolt. Almost. Let's see if I can give it a little push from above just to get that last little bit down. That should be just enough for us to get our socket in. With everything dropped down, now we have a really good view of that crank pulley. And since this is a small nose crank, we've got 4 10s and 2 little Phillips. I have a short that shows the difference between the large nose crank and the small nose crank. I'll go ahead and throw that in here real quick so you guys can see. But these little Phillips screws can be very annoying, especially if there's any rust on your car. So I'm going to use the impact to try to get that first one off. The impact really helps, and this is again a time where a JIS screwdriver is critical. Thankfully, this car is not very rusty. Now we can see 2 of the 10s, so I'll go ahead and get in here with the baby impact. Take out 2 of them. Then, with our 1/2-inch drive, I'll try to manually crank the engine over a little bit. If your engine's compression is too strong, or your arm's not long enough, or you just don't want to, you can also use the starter to try to do this enough times so you can guess it. Now, our AC drive pulley can come off. There's the front washer for it, the pulley itself. Can't quite get it clear of the frame rail. Maybe if I lift the engine back up. With the engine lifted up, I was able to clear the frame rail, no problem. Go ahead and put it back down so you guys can see. There's the main crank pulley. And there should be a spacer between these two pulleys. Looks like somebody's been in here before and they put it behind it on accident. It's okay, we'll pop that off. So it should go, well, then there is this silver plate, really thin one, that covers the timing belt. Right here. And now we can see our timing belt and our crank pulley and all the nasty oil leaking from that seal. So the correct order should be silver plate, main crank pulley, the spacer with the square hole on it, then your AC pulley if you have it, and then the plate with the round keyway on it. While we're down here though, since we're doing the seal, we are going to pull our main crank bolt so we can get that lower pulley off. For that, we're going to use the impact. Otherwise, we have to have somebody have it in gear and hold the brake down so the wheels don't spin, try to break it free by hand. The impact though should take care of it immediately. There it is, very hefty bolt. Now you can see the timing gear and the keyway. We'll go ahead and repeat all of that on our engine stand. That way you guys get a much clearer view of what the heck we just did. Back over at our engine stand here, same thing, small nose crank. We'll take off those 410s that we can see. That's gonna come off with that front spacer again. Then I'll go ahead and take out our little Phillips, crank pulley, and the spacer. There's our little thin disc again. And our main crank bolt. And this one being a lot cleaner, you can really see the difference between the belt and the gear, the oil pan, and a little keyway in there. And then same deal as before. This one also has a small shim. They don't always have that shim, but there's your order again. Steel plate, crank pulley, square edged spacer, AC pulley, round edge spacer. Then your bolts, just like that. Now, when we're back in the engine, we'll take off our lower timing cover. That's just 3 bolts here, here, and here, and it'll pop off now that the pulley is out of the way. And then we can go ahead and start taking off the actual belt and tensioner. So, back up top we go. So here we are, our oil-soaked cover. There's our lower bolt kind of tucked right down in here. There it is. I'll pull those out so I don't lose them. Now, all of the bolts in the lower cover are this medium size, and then the upper timing cover bolts are all the extra long size. That way you don't get them confused. So 3 lower ones, 4 upper ones, extra long. Makes it easy to keep track of. Now our cover should just pop off. It says confidently. It's a good time to be wearing gloves. Oh, looks like our dowel rod here got stuck along with the gasket, which is crumbling apart from how stiff and heat struck it is. Let's grab a pair of pliers and wiggle that dowel out. So that's how these timing covers work, so that way you don't bust the plastic. Each one of these holes has these little metal inserts in there, so don't lose any of those. We'll actually shove that one just back in its hole. The TheFestivaStore should soon have lower timing covers available as well, so keep an eye out for that. This one looks like it's kind of due for replacement. But now we can see our entire timing belt. So cam, crank, tensioner right here, the belt itself. I will go ahead and get the 12 mil. We will slack off the tensioner, forcefully scoot it to the left, and then tighten the tensioner back down so it's all in the slack position. We can pop the belt off. Then we can start removing our water pump. We can take off this 14 millimeter to get the cam pulley off. And then we will carefully slide the lower timing gear off to reach the seal behind it. Now we can kind of get the belt off. For the sake of time, I'll just cut it off since we're replacing it. All Mazda B series engines are non-interference. So if you were to lose a belt mid-drive, it is not a problem. Slap a new belt on, you're back on the road. No problems.
It happened to me once.
Now the cam gear is off. We can see there the alignment peg and the cam seal, which we will be replacing. And then we will try to slide our timing gear off. I'm going to grab 2 flat blades or 2 little tiny baby pry bars, get one on each side of this, and try to evenly pry, tap it a little bit, get it off. You do not want to just like jam a wedge in there and hit it hard. You can chip the edge right off this gear. That being said, if you do chip your gear off, feel free to message me. I can actually source these new from Mazda. There it is, our gear. And I think I dropped the key in the sludge. There it is. Do not lose your little tiny woodruff key. Very important. Now, with a 12 mil, we can go ahead and remove our water pump. That's 4 bolts on the face of it, and kind of sneaky on the backside behind our AC stuff, 2 bolts holding in our crossover pipe. I will do my best to sneak in there and get those, but it will be kind of hard to film that with the engine still in here. All right, there it is. Kind of a pain with AC. I'll get the very last one. I'll keep these with the pump, so make sure you use the right ones when we replace it. Ta-da! Now we go ahead and do all that on our demo engine. Back over on the demo engine, we'll take off that lower timing cover again. Then we can go back to our tensioner, and I'm just shoving it all the way over with my finger, then tightening it back down. That makes the belt nice and loose. Now I can come up here, try to slide it off. Back to the 14, take off the cam gear. And then try to get our lower pulley back off again.
Break it?
Yep. As I warned against.
What the heck?
So this one chipped a bunch. It got rusted in place. I actually cleaned this entire engine off outside to prep for this, and I think some of my water got in there and caused it to rust pretty good. So you can see all the edges are all chipped up. Now I'm coming in here, prying on it from one side, and then tapping it with a hammer to try to loosen it up some on the opposite side from where I'm prying. There it goes. And there it is. So that one we're going to want to replace. While you're in there, you can also get a new key. This one seems fine, still nice and tight, but these are all still available. So if you need a set of these, let me know. I can still source these from Mazda. But now we can see your seals, pump, and your top seal. If you come over to the side, you can also go ahead and see the 2 bolts removed from the side of the pump. So this is for the water pump inlet. These are available brand new on the Festiva store right now. That's a new item for us. You can also buy this entire coolant tube, brand new, and OEM gaskets that go here for the O-ring. So all that, you can refresh this whole thing. So I'll go and take these off. I'll also unbolt this just to show you guys the bolt down here and how it slips off if you want to replace it while you're down there, and the 4 bolts in the front. One pump. Some of you may be wondering why we're not replacing the oil pump while we're in here, and that is because the OEM Mazda oil pump is the best oil pump you can get. They really don't wear out on B series. They really don't have pressure problems. They don't get that clogged up. Leave it alone. I would not take this off. I would certainly not replace it with one of the crappy aftermarket units. This thing is fine. If you have pressure issues, your problem is likely somewhere else, in the passages, in your filter, in the port to the head, not the pump. Leave that alone. If you want to take it off to fix the seal, you will also be taking off the oil pan, because the oil pan bolts to the bottom half of that pump. So you'd be doing an oil pan gasket and then doing the gasket behind the pump itself. That can make it easier to pop the seal out. However, on this video, we will be trying the seal removal tool from Lyle. So I'll grab that. Even though we haven't done the car yet, we'll go ahead and do it now just so we can see it, because it's going to be very hard to use that tool and film in the car. Take these seals out. Sometimes you can come in here with a pick and get them picked out. These seals, however, are super dry and super stuck. So we're going to try the slightly dangerous but rather effective screw method. So we'll be taking some short drywall screws, putting them in through the edge of the seal, and using that with our pliers to pull the seal out. However, you do not want to miss and hit the crank or hit the cam or hit the edge of the head or the edge of the oil pump. Mostly you do not want to scratch the cam. If you had to scratch anything, the outside edge at least you could fill with some sort of sealant. But if you scratch the surface of the cam over here or the surface of the crank with the screw, that will cause a burred edge. That will destroy your new seal in no time. So we're going to try really hard just to aim for the center of the thick part of the seal and not the more flexible inside part. I'm going to go really slow and very careful. So if we zoom in a bunch, you can see where I'm at. Oh, here, I'll go to the light side. If you zoom in a bunch, you can see where I am on the seal here. Not down here in the soft part and not in the very edge, but dead center of the thick outside band, because that's where the metal is in here. So if you have one that is absolutely stuck like this one is, as you can see from the plethora of holes we've drilled, then you'll have to do it the right way. So now we can take off our alternator, we can take off our tensioner, take off the bottom bolts from the oil pump, then take off the main bolts from the oil pump, remove the oil pump, and pop the seal out from the backside. Quick and easy.
This is a terrible idea.
So now with all these massive holes, the seal puller worked, but to do that right, we're going to take the pump off. You can see, though, just how dry rotted the seal is. This is not supposed to crack into little hard pieces like this. This should be very soft and flexible, but you can just see it's literally like crumbling in my hand if I push on this as if it were made of hard plastic instead of soft rubber. But same deal, aim for the middle. Let it walk everywhere. Oh, try a new sharper screw. There it is, nice and easy. And you can see from in here, our screw is dead center in that channel. We didn't go past the edge. and we did not touch the cam. All right. Oh, wait. Now, with all of our seals removed, we're ready to start cleaning up our surfaces, putting in our new seals, and putting in the new water pump. I like to use a roll lock wheel to kind of clean up the block where this gasket's going to go. Just get rid of some of the old gasket, bit of a razor blade, bit of a roll lock wheel. Get this all cleaned up real quick. I'd recommend getting an old damp rag and putting it in the hole just to try to keep some of the debris out from the block. But generally this will be some pretty light stuff because we're going to scrape most of it off with the scraper. All right, that's looking much better now. For the actual water pump, I like to put just a little bit of blue RTV on the water pump side, then put the gasket on that so it sticks nice. The gasket only goes on one way. As you can see, if I put it on backwards, none of the holes quite line up. So flip it the other way. Now our holes line up great. So go ahead and do that little RTV dab, stick this on, and put it in. Go ahead and glove up for this one since I already know this is going to get everywhere. But I really just want a thin skim coat on here, nothing crazy. Just enough to keep it flat and keep the gasket sealing. And we'll go ahead and open our service manual up and check the torque spec on these, which I have a downloaded copy of. Everybody can view that free as a PDF, so make sure you're checking these and torque them down to spec. For this demo engine, I'm just going to bolt it on so we can keep going for now. You repeat the same procedure over here for the side part, just a thin coat of RTV and stick its gasket on. We will do that on the engine bay one, but for this one, I'm not going to do it on camera. Now we can press our seals in. We have the lower and the upper, and the seal is different between large nose crank and small nose crank, so make sure you're buying the correct seal based on that guide I showed earlier from the YouTube short. Also, we will be testing out a new tool coming from Salmon Industries. This is a seal installer that is 3D printed to fit this crank exactly like the factory service tool. It pushes in with the factory bolt and should basically stop at the exact depth that you want the seal to be installed at. I have one for the cam as well, large nose and small nose, single cam and dual cam. They're still test prints, so this is the one that's currently fitting, so we will go ahead and test it out on this one. For this, you'll want to put a little bit of oil on the seal beforehand, so I'm going to go ahead and lube just that lip up, slide it over the crank, and then gently tap it in with the bolt from the factory. So to use this, we just slip that seal on the inside first. There we go. Now it's protruding and not perfectly even, so we can take our tool here, slide it on, and then using the factory crank bolt, we can tighten that down until it bottoms out. Not a ton of torque, just enough to get the seat, and that should evenly press that bushing all the way in. Now I can pull the bolt back out. And there it is, one seal pressed in perfectly. Now the top one I'll have to do by hand since the seal's not quite deep enough. And if you're doing it by hand at home, same deal. Just lube up the outside, clip him on, and then you can sometimes use a large socket, a piece of PVC pipe or similar. You just want to make sure you push it in evenly on all sides. Like that side's a little too far in, so I'm going to pull it back out a tick. There we go. Then get this side of the seat. And then try to use something kind of wide and flat to tap it the rest of the way on. I've got the soft edge of this tool here. And we're looking to get that edge just flush. And now you can see why that tool comes in handy. You don't have to worry about one side being further in or out than the other side. But there it is. We'll keep going on the demo engine real quick. That way I don't have to keep switching back and forth between here and the car. So you guys can see the whole procedure of resealing it and retiming it now. And we'll do it all in the car, kind of in a bit of a faster motion since it's so much harder to see what the heck's going on. So next, we're going to want to get our gear back on, our cam gear back on, and then we can do the timing belt. So we take our key, which has a small notch cut out of it. That notch faces down and into the crank. And again, the service manual shows all this very well, so I recommend reading it. I will go ahead and link it again. Just like that. Cam gear. Bolt both of those back on. And again, I recommend bolting these to torque or torquing these to spec. So now, on the engine, you can see we have this big triangle on top of the oil pump and a small notch on the gear here. You are at top dead center on the crank when that little notch lines up with that little triangle, just like that. So it's dead on center. You'll also notice that the bump here, the keyway, is facing up. If this were a large nose crank, you would also see where the alignment pin, a little tiny dot right here, would also be facing straight up, so you know that that's top dead center. The cam gear has two marks on it, one at 12 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock. They're just small little lines barely engraved into the side of it. Those line up with small triangles cast up here on the valve cover and a small triangle here cast into the edge. You can also see the alignment dowel facing 12 o'clock up. As long as those lines are aligned with those triangles, the cam is now in time. When we're putting the belt on, we want to make sure that the front side of the engine, or the exhaust side, is the tight part of the belt, and the loose part of the belt is towards the back, because our tensioner will take up the slack from the rear as long as the front is tight. I will start with it down here on the bottom. Put that around the edge here. Then tension the belt so the top edge here is nice and tight. Make sure the bottom is nice and tight. Then I just kind of bend the belt over the edge of the gear, about there. A little too far, I will gently push it back out a bit. And this was a used belt because I'm not putting a new belt on the demo engine, so it made it a little easier to stretch on. The new belt will be a bit harder. You want to kind of bend the edge of it to really clamp over, and we'll see that more when we go back into the car. But now I'm checking the marks. That one looks pretty much in line. That one looks fantastic. I'll now loosen the tensioner. Hold down bolt. It's on a spring down here, so that will automatically suck it back in. While you're here, you can also go ahead and change out this tensioner if your kit came with it. I'll show that on the engine in there. It's just removing this bolt, popping this off, and replacing that spring. But now that we have some tension set from that spring, we tighten that back down. And now the user manual recommends putting the engine through 2 full rotations to make sure it's in time. Even though it looks in time now, once it settles from a couple rotations, it might be slightly different. So I will go ahead and hand crank this over twice. And flat again. All right, now the top one is perfectly in line, and our bottom one, right on the money. Fantastic. It is good to go. And as always, assembly is the reverse of disassembly. So from here, you go put on your lower timing cover. You would put on your little plates, then your pulleys, all the associated bolts. We'll go ahead and do that in the car, but it's the same exact procedure as it was taking it all back off. So with that out of the way, now we can go back in the car, try to pop its seals out and start putting the new seals in. All right, seal removal, same process as before. Then I'll drop the engine and try to get the bottom one from below. With the engine dropped down, we can repeat the same process down on the bottom. We tried our best to clean it up with some oil cleaner.
Hey, first try that time.
Look at that perfectly installed seal. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, that seal, wow. While we're down here, we can go ahead and properly reinstall our lower pulley. Let's get that out, like I said. And for the small nose crank, it's highly recommended to put a bit of a Loctite on the end of your bolt. That way it doesn't want to loosen up. The small nose crank has an issue with that occasionally. Not super common on Festivas, but very common for a Miata. All right, then back up to the top and we will put in our cam seal. This time I'm going to use a 32mm socket, try to help push that in place evenly. Lovely. Now we'll prep our sealing surfaces again. So we'll try to clean off the inlet pipe and the seal surface for the new water pump. This surface is a bit rough, so we will probably do RTV on this side. I'd recommend definitely buying a new one of these from the TheFestivaStore. That way you have a super fresh, super clean seal surface. Okay. All right, with that on, we can put on our pipe gasket first. Making sure those holes are lined up. Then on the water pump itself, same procedures before. For this job, we're going to be using the Continental timing belt kit. I'd usually recommend Continental or Gates. However, recently the Gates qualities have been lackluster to say the least. So I would recommend paying the extra, getting the Continental kit. And it's the full kit. So this one has a new belt and the new tensioner. So we'll go ahead and install a tensioner and we'll start sliding the belt on. So 12mm on the tensioner. Little bolt out and a little spring down here. Comes off the little peg. You can see inside, through all the oil, the spring just clips to a little hole on the side of this. So we will unclip the spring from that little hole. And on our new one, there's the same hole. Just clip it right back on. Then down here, you can kind of see if I wipe it off. There's the section of the oil pump that it slides on. Our hook comes over here, it's this little peg on the edge of the oil pump, right there. Then this slides all the way over. Got to kind of wrestle it in place. Put the bolt back in. And once again, we will go full open and then tighten that down. Oh, that's nice. Spins so free. Then we'll toss our cam gear back on. Now I'll grab a 14 on the ratchet and line it back up. You can see there's one of our timing marks right here and one of them down here. That one needs to be at 12 o'clock and that one needs to be at 3 o'clock. So we'll just keep rotating it, tightening direction. It will kind of click into place. Clicked again. One more. Boom. Now it's lined up. Then we can try to take a peek all the way down the bottom where we can see that currently it is not lined up. Oh, there's our mark. Went right there. Fantastic. Now the fun part, stretching our belt back on. Same deal as before. I'm going to put it on the bottom first. Try to tension this front edge. Then I'll push, basically trying to flatten the belt and then shove it across to get it on this gear. We're still lined up top. Looks like it's very close on the bottom, maybe not exact. So I will release tension and we'll do our 2 revolutions again. All right, bottom's in line. We'll check out the top, and it is also perfectly in line. The camera's not quite the right angle for you to see it, so make sure you get down there with your eyes and view it, but the top one is definitely dead on. So we are good to go. Now we can put on our timing covers and then all the pulleys. Now that our seals are in and our timing belt is done, the rest of this is, once again, basically assembly is the reverse of disassembly. So we're just going to go ahead and blaze through putting on our pulleys, our timing covers, and our belts, get the engine out, put back on, get coolant back in this thing, and see if we can fire it up. Fantastic. All that's left is to fill up with coolant and bleed out the system. There we go. Everything's buttoned back up. Covers are back on. Mounts back in. Cooling system's bled. She's ready to go. Look at that. So there you go. There's everything you need to know to do your timing belt job. Make sure you check out all the relevant parts on TheFestivaStore.com. Be on the lookout for our new cam seal installation tools. As always, thanks for watching. See ya. Next time on Salmon Industries, we correct this god-awful fitment.
Throw in some vomit emojis and
You gotta say action.
action.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to Salmon Industries. Today, we're doing a water pump. Shit. All right, fine. Dude, there's so much crap in there from that seal exploding. These seals were toast. Look, these are plastic chunks of that seal.